And who am I? That's not a secret I'll never tell. You know you love me. XOXO. Gossip Girl.
What's up? We got Gossip Girl, Season 3, Episode 5, Rufus getting married. This episode starts off with Serena and Carter happily together. Nate and Bree happily taking a walk. Dan IMing Olivia, and Chuck and Blair in bed together. Rufus and Lily are still not talking to each other. At the Waldorf, Serena and Carter have breakfast together. She asks if his gambling money is back, and he says no, and that he needs some because he's broke, and without his parents' help. Serena agrees, saying that she's low on cash without Lily giving her money because she moved out of the apartment. Carter asks Serena to talk to Lily and asks if he'll take her place to dim someone Nate, Chuck, and Blair and Bree, and he says he can't since he has other people to talk to. Elsewhere, outside, Serena asks Dan why he has to use her IMing name to message Olivia while she's on her press tour. He explains every time he logs into his account, Georgina overloads him with messages. Serena tells him to tell her that he's dating someone new because she's going to figure it out, and he decides to email her. Vanessa goes to the cafe and starts when Georgina shows up. Meanwhile, Blair complains about Georgina's return to Nate, Chuck, and Bree at brunch. Blair is rude to Bree, and Nate changes the subject by asking if Serena is still dating Carter. Bree asks about Carter, and Chuck replies that he didn't know she knew about Carter. She explains that their family used to vacation together. Excuses herself. Chuck follows and apologizes for Blair's rudeness. When they're gone, Blair tries to warn Nate about Bree, saying no women are that nice. No women are that nice. In the back, Chuck overhears Bree on the phone and asks if she's looking for Carter. He reasons that an enemy of Carter is a friend of his, and Bree asks him to call her if he finds out where Carter is. After the interwoods, Serena arrives and finds Lily looking at her past wedding album. She apologizes for not going to Brown, and Lily admits that she's more angry that she left Serena with another man who doesn't get their family. Again, this lady's awful. Serena implies that her and Rufus are a perfect couple, and Lily leaves the room upon Serena saying that. Eric and Jay arrive back in the penthouse, and Serena asks what's going on. They explain that Lily and Rufus haven't been speaking since she moved out, and since Serena moved out, and their relationship is in trouble. At the law, Rufus asks Dan if he can sleep in his own bed that night. Dan then calls Serena and tells her the latest development. Serena vows to figure out a way to get them to start talking again, to fix things. At NYU, Georgina asks Vanessa why Dan won't reply to her, and Vanessa tells her that Dan is dating someone new. Georgina tells Dan to dump her, and she explains that she wasn't visiting family in Boston. She was visiting family. She was with Scott. And Vanessa doesn't get Dan. And if Vanessa doesn't get Dan to dump his girlfriend, she will tell everyone. She will expose Scott's true identity as Lily and Rufus' son to everyone. They go back to the dorms, and Vanessa calls Dan and tries to plant some rumors in his head about Olivia, and Dan says he isn't sure what she's trying to do, but he's in the middle of something and hangs up to go to the restaurant with Jane and Rufus. They arrive, and Georgina tells Vanessa that they're moving into the Photoshop phase. At the restaurant, Serena, Eric, and Lilia also arrive, and the kids set up Rufus and Lily to eat and talk together. In Chuck's suite, Chuck gives Blair a message. She reveals Carter is staying at her penthouse, and that she wouldn't tell Bree because she hates her. And that she won't tell Bree because she hates her. Chuck tells her that she hates that Nate's moving on. And then leaves to call Bree. Outside, Dan tells Eric and Jenny that he thinks Vanessa wants to break up with Olivia. They suggest that it's because she has a crush on him, and he doesn't think that's true. They tell him to tell Vanessa that, and back at the restaurant, Rufus and Lily are having a good time until they begin discussing wedding plans. Of course, they begin to argue over not compromising for each other, and they agree and they don't ready to talk yet. Meanwhile, Dan walks up into Vanessa's dorm and catches him photoshopping Olivia's head into a pregnant woman. He tries to tell her that he wants to try to let her down easy, but he realizes Olivia. She replies that she is in love with him and that Georgina is blackmailing her. Dan asks what she has on her, and Vanessa admits that Georgina knows the truth, and she knows that Scott is his brother. Ooh, and that Scott is Dan's, and she knows that Georgina knows that Georgina knows that she knows that Scott is Dan's brother. Or half brother, or I guess brother. That night, Rufus and Lily take a look at the same photo of them together, happy and in love, and they head for each other to talk to the apartment. When they arrive, they find that the other is at their place, and they apologize for fighting and decide to take a leave and get married the next day. Next day, the wedding plans are underway at the Vanderwoods. The icon druid tells Serena that Sonic Youth is in New Hampton, but will try to make it to Whitty. Serena comes down and begins to read her vows to Serena. At the loft, Vanessa tells Dan that he has to hold Georgina off for one more day, and he agrees. Rufus emerges from the back, and Dan tells him that he's headed out real quick and leaves. Back at the Vanderwoods, and Serena tells Lily that her vows aren't that very good and could be applied to any of her exes. Blair then announces that the mayor is going to expedite a permit so Lily and Rufus can get married at Brooklyn Botanic Garden. Elsewhere, Dan and Georgina go for a walk. He tells them that maybe they should try their relationship again and maybe go on a date. He invites her to the wedding, but says it's a family event. She invites herself to the wedding, but he says it's a family event and they can hang out the next day. She kisses him deeply and he leaves. Once he's gone, he realizes he's lying to her. That he was lying to her. She realizes that Dan was lying to her. At the Waldorf, Carter calls Serena to find out how she is. He asks if he's coming to the wedding. He promised he wouldn't miss it. When they hang up, Chuck appears to the room and reveals Bree told him everything about what happened, what he did to their family. Chuck explains that Bree will be at the wedding and she's pretty sure she'll be there with her family. He says that he's providing a choice for Carter. Either go to the wedding and tell Serena the truth, as well as risking dealing with Bree's family, or he can leave a ticket Chuck bought for him. Meanwhile, Georgina meets with Scott and comes busted. He asks if Vanessa even wants to see him, and she says they're going to surprise her right then. At the wedding, Serena is worried that Carter won't show up. Blair promises he will, then goes off to take a look. Meanwhile, Bree and Nat arrive at the bar. Blair tells Chuck that Carter's real late, and it better not be because something he did. Chuck says he gave Carter an easy way out. Elsewhere, Dan is on his phone with Vanessa and says what happened with Georgina. She promises that it'll be worth it when Lily and Rufus are happily married. He then gets into a cab and goes to the wedding. Back at the wedding, Lily finishes getting dressed with Jenny's help. Jenny excuses her, explains that it wasn't easy for her when her parents divorced, and it's a lot harder when she knew Rufus loved someone else. Then she says she can't wait for Lily to hear Rufus' vows because they're so beautiful. Lily thanks her, then Jenny leaves the room. When she's gone, Lily throws her vows out. Elsewhere, Chuck meets with Blair and they see Carter arrive and greet Serena. Bree also sees and takes her phone out. Carter takes Serena aside and explains the whole truth that he ran up on a high gambling debt and married a pretty shy woman, Beth Buckley. And he proposed to her so the family would pay off the debt, but he left her at the altar. Serena, hearing the wedding begin and abandoned. Serena, basically shocked by this, abandons Carter there. Meanwhile, Georgina arrives to see Dan. She's only stopped by to deliver a wedding present, then walks away. Elsewhere, Lily asks Rufus if they can have somewhere to meet before the wedding. She reveals that she couldn't write her vows, and it's because they can't agree on anything. And stakes for them being together are too high. At the wedding site, Serena tells the audience that there's been a slight delay and then sees Georgina get up and walk away. She follows along with Blair, Eric, Chuck, and Jenny. And when Rufus and Lily fight, Scott approaches them and asks if they're getting married. Shocked, Lily tells him that it's rude to interrupt and then asks who he is. He walks away and everyone approaches. Georgina then announces that, Scott's Lily and Rufus' son, and then also walks away because I guess that was their wedding. Confused, Lily asks if Confused, Lily asks if Georgina was telling the truth. Serena says no, but then, but but then Rufus says that Scott is their son's brother. Dana speaks up and says that no, Scott is their son. Vanessa then jumps in and says that the Blossoms lied to him, that Scott is indeed their son. Knowing that they messed up their potential relationship with their son, they go after Vanessa, Jenny, basically knowing that they just met, Lily just got mad at her own son, and they go off to find Scott. Rufus and Lily go off to find Scott. Afterwards, Ellen leaves the wedding and Serena sits alone. Carter comes over and asks if she is okay. She replies she needs some time, and Carter leaves, but not before saying that he doesn't really care about her. He sees Bree with her cousin's aka best brother. He tells him that he'll be at the Downey that night, and they can't have a confrontation at the wedding. Unless them, Chuck witnesses the whole thing. Meanwhile, Rufus and Lily aren't having enough luck finding Scott. After wandering around for a while, they see Scott about to board a bus. When Rufus catches him, he admits when he found out his parents were him and Lily, and that they were getting back together, he was happy. But then he found out that the man got married, and he hoped they gave him up because they weren't ready. They weren't ready, and not because they didn't love each other. Lily comes up and tells Rufus that she was scared because she's ready, but she's ready to face their future. And she apologizes to Scott, and the three hug. That night, Lily and Rufus get married. After they're married, Lily or Mrs. Serena that if she was at Brown, the wedding probably wouldn't have happened. Meanwhile, Scott apologized to Dan for not telling who he was. Jane asks how Scott feels about board games, and he's happy when Scott says he loves them. Scott tells Dan that he feels bad for putting Vanessa in the middle of everything, and he might return over the holidays to visit Sonic Youth. And Sonic Youth begins to play. Serena sits in the back alone. Chuck comes in, and Serena tells him what Carter explained. He leaves even though he hates. He reveals even though he hates Carter, he gave him a chance to leave, and he has already given him credit, and he already given credit for going to the wedding, knowing Bree will be there. Serena realizes that the girl he was engaged to was a Buckley, and Chuck says Carter must really care about her, and the Buckleys clearly want revenge. In the main room, Nate confronts Bree by using him to get Carter. She admits she basically did, and that her family will always come before Nate. She starts to apologizes. He basically asks her to get out, ending her relationship, and basically ending her time on the show. Yeah, that was short-lived. In the back room, Serena tries to call Carter, but gets the voicemail. It's revealed he's in a car with Bree's cousin. Back at the law, Rufus and Lily share their first dance as a couple. Dan tells Blair that night would have been perfect if Georgina didn't get in the way. Blair tells him that she might not be sure about that, and at a bar, Georgina is approached by a prince from Belarus, or basically just Vanya pretending to be a prince from Belarus. He invites her to come back to his home country with him to celebrate his oil pipeline, and she agrees to go. On their way out, Dora reveals herself from behind the menu because our icon knows how to hide herself. Of course, it's revealed that. Yeah, it's revealed that literally this was part of Blair's plan. So yeah, now Georgina's off to Belarus with Vanya, never to be seen again. Of course, we're going to see her again, but now she's no longer Blair's problem. Now she's no longer Blair and the gang's problem because she's gone. And yeah, and that's basically where the episode ends. And we never see Scott again, even though he's mentioned by Lily that one time. But we never see him again. He never makes a full appearance in the show. So that was episode 5. I always felt weird about this. Like, I always felt weird that they did this. Like Scott was such an interesting character in these first 5 episodes. So they were just like, oh, we'll have him finally reveal who he is, and then we'll basically just never bring him up again. Well, he'll never make a canon appearance again. Lily mentions him one time later in other seasons, but he never makes a full-time appearance. So this was the last appearance of Scott. And how did I feel about it? I felt like he had a lot of missed potential. Like, literally, they got rid of him because I guess this whole storyline of revealing him being Lily Rufus' son's secret was over. And yeah, we never see him again. The characters never mention him except for Lily one time in one other episode. So, bye Scott. Bye Scott. You had a good review. You had a good storyline. And now that your secret's out, we don't have to see you ever again. Goodbye, Scott Rossum. And I guess goodbye, Georgina, for now. I know we all know she'll come back, but we all know she'll come back. But for now, Georgina's gone from the show for a very long gone from the season for about long time. Don't know when she comes back. I think she comes back in the finale. But she's gone from the show for good until the final episode. So, yeah. Kind of weird how I guess because she was causing the gang trouble. So, Blair was like, okay, Gloria, we're going to have Vanya pretend to be a prince. So he'll take Georgina to Belarus. Even though Vanya does come back. Don't know how he was able to come back without Georgina not being suspicious. But still. So this was the last appearance of Scott. Really good character. I'll miss him. He was a really good character. Wish they could have done more with him. I guess his whole gimmick of, yeah. Yeah, his gimmick was... His gimmick was gone. So they kind of were like, well, since he's revealed, I guess we have no storyline from him anymore. And we'll never mention him or we'll never see him again. But again, Scott, just like Aaron and just like Catherine Beaton, this show gives us characters and then gets rid of them as soon as they get interesting. I guess Scott goes... Either he stays with the family, now that he knows the truth, or he goes back to Boston. We'll never know. Again, Lily mentioned Scott one time in later seasons, like in season 4 or 5. But that's it. She mentions him one time. And then we never see him again. But he's never seen. He's never mentioned, except for that one time. Dan nor Vanessa never... ever mention him again. Literally. So, what happened, writers? You had a cool character. You got rid of him. I would love to know. I'd love to contact the writers of God's Grill one day and be like, why did you get rid of all these cool characters that could have had potential? Like Catherine and Aaron and Scott. They had... And Allison Humphrey. They had such good potential to be recurring characters. But then they're just gone or non-mentioned. Without ever being referenced again. This is what I'm talking about. That these characters are mentioned. But they're never. These characters are so interesting. But then they're never mentioned again. But yeah. Next episode, we got episode 6. Enough about Eve. And yeah. Then we got episode 7. How to succeed in Basses. But still. With this being a 22 episode season, I think this will be really good. But anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time for Season 3, Episode 6, Enough About Eve. Yeah, you know you love me. XOXO, Gossip Girl. I know I didn't say it in Episode 3, but now I'm saying it. XOXO, Gossip Girl.